Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Ryan today. We're here to chat through around all the news and events and discussion ahead of Celtic's massive match in the UEFA Champions League playoff round tonight in Kazakhstan against FC Kairat in Almaty. Yep. Ryan, how are you doing today? What did you make of the press conference, etc., from Brendan Rodgers yesterday, and how are you feeling about going into this one?
It was nice to see Brendan Rodgers in a chirpier mood than he has been in previous weeks. Those clips that came out shortly before the full press conference video on the Celtic FC's YouTube page, seeing him smile as he was asked about signings was a great sight to see. He's not I don't think he'd be the best poker player in the world. He gave away his intentions or his inner thoughts probably with that big smile. It would suggest that things are happening in the background, but. Yeah, yesterday was good. I thought Brendan Rodgers was in good form in Kazakhstan. I think the two words that stood out to me the most were no excuses today. There's no excuses for Celtic to get the job done tonight in Kazakhstan. That was the big takeaway for me, and fingers crossed that they can do that tonight.
Yes, certainly. He did use no excuses multiple times, and there's no sense of like the conditions playing a part, the time playing a part. This Celtic squad are just entirely focused on qualifying for this Champions League. We're going to wrap up a few bits of news just before we get into tonight's team, etc. First of all, confirmed since the last time we were on YouTube, Marco Tilly has confirmed his permanent move to Austria to sign for Rapid Vienna. That one was always likely. Marco Tilly departs without really having made any sort of impact at Celtic, so fair play to him. Good luck to his future career. Just wrapping that up, he is now away. Celtic are close to agreeing a loan deal for Marcelo Sarache, a Uruguay international coming from Boca Juniors. There's conflicting reports on whether there's an option to buy in that or not. Some outlets saying there is an option to buy, some saying there's not. That's going to be one we'll wait and see in the official announcement whether there's an option to buy. But he certainly looks like he's on his way to Scotland and initially London, I think, to undergo his medical and then sign for Celtic on a loan deal. So he's going to provide cover at left back, and I've heard that he can also play right back as well. So I think he's going to provide cover on both those flanks, it looks like, this coming season. As we know, Michel and Balikwisha is on his way to Celtic as well. But you did a show on that yesterday, Ryan. That one looks like it's all but complete as well.
Yeah, it's good to see that there's deals getting done in the background. I know they're kind of in the background at the moment because there's more pressing issues at hand with Celtic in the Champions League tonight against Kairat. But it's important that Celtic get this business done before the end of the transfer window in key areas. And the two positions, or three if you count Sarache's versatility in the right back area, the areas that they're covering with these signings are very, very important. Celtic needed another winger. I would argue they still need one, even with Balikwisha coming through the door. But to have Sarache available on both the left and right back position is so important, just for squad depth, for just so that if there is an injury to Kieran Tierney midway through the season, you've got an experienced pro coming in that can take his place. 27 years old, 9 caps for Uruguay. He's played for the likes of RB Leipzig, Galatasaray, Levante, Boca Juniors and River Plate. He's played for both sides of that divide, which is quite an eye raiser when I looked at the clubs that he's played for. So he's clearly adjusted to playing in pressure environments. Judging by the teams or some of the teams that I've read out there, he should be able to deal with the pressure cooker that is Scottish football, hopefully as well. So there is conflicting reports with the option to buy, but he's coming on loan for the season. He looks like an experienced pro, and he'll be playing for his deal, you would imagine, next season if he impresses.
Yeah, and certainly I think the information is that Celtic are looking for 4 signings in this kind of last week of the window. These would be 2 of them, and then I think as everyone's aware, Celtic is still looking for an attacking reinforcement, perhaps another winger, and then a centre forward as well. And then I suppose on the back of that, there might be various loan deals and machinations in terms of players moving out of Celtic as well, either for the season temporarily or even permanently in some cases. So yeah, let's get into it as well. Tonight, obviously, Celtic playing FC Kairat. Now, a little bit of news from the Kairat camp on that, and just another kind of personnel blow for them, I suppose. Their goalkeeper, Alexander Zarutsky, we knew was out of tonight. Dastan Satpayev, we knew, was out with suspension after picking up that late yellow card at Celtic Park last week. Their starting striker last week, Edmilson, the Brazilian, you may remember, he also looks like he will be out of tonight's match as well. So they're, I would assume, I think they've got a guy called Ricardinho who might come in for
He was speaking
Edmilson.
to the media last week.
Yeah, another Brazilian. But yeah, it looks like the player they started up front last week, Edmilson, won't be able to play tonight due to injury. So they've got a few problems, Ryan, but as I say, I think the focus is entirely on Celtic and what Celtic bring to this occasion. You can't really start worrying about what they are doing.
Yeah, I think regardless of the team that Kairat put out, they are the home side and they will be expected to attack on the night. They've made it abundantly clear, the players and their manager have made it clear that this is the biggest game, or one of the biggest games in Kairat's history, so they will be treating it as such. It's going to be a difficult test regardless of who plays for the home team tonight, but I would completely agree with you, it's all about Celtic tonight. I would agree with Brendan Rodgers in the fact that there's no excuses. This is a big chance for Celtic to get into the league phase of the Champions League, and with the team that Celtic have got, they disappointed last week at home in Celtic Park, but they can make amends for that away from home in Kazakhstan. I understand that the temperature will be difficult, even though it'll be a little bit cooler over there by the time kick-off arrives. But yeah, Celtic have got a job to do tonight, and you're just hoping that they can see through that job and get to where they need to be in the Champions League.
Okay, guys, before we go further, I'm just going to promote the offer we've got running, this Kieran Tierney print that you can get for free with a £1 subscription. The £1 gets you 6 months of access to celticway.co.uk. This is a genuine bargain. The £1 alone for the print alone. It arrives through your door. There's no postage you have to pay or anything. Comes through your door, £1. And you get 6 months of access to the celticway.co.uk. I'm going to throw in the link to the live chat. I'll put it in the description below as well for anyone interested. It's a fantastic A3 print. It's not a wee postcard size or anything. It's a proper art print. And as you can see, I think it's a belter. Again, from renowned football artist made by Frankie. So if you're interested, if you like the look of that, then yeah, go for it. Ryan, we'll get into the predicted team here. Now, what I've done, we usually just have one, or we have in the last few times we've done this. What I've done is I've done two options, because I know there's going to be, I'm already anticipating the cry of, what's that team? What are you doing, John? That's ridiculous. So I've put together a couple of options of what the Celtic forward line might look like tonight. Now, I think Celtic's back six, if you will, look pretty solid in terms of we think it's going to be Schmeichel, Anthony Ralston, Carter Vickers-Scales and Kieran Tierney, and then Callum McGregor. Ahead of that, I think it can be changeable. So in this option one, and again, this isn't my preferred option, it's just a potential. We've got Adam Ida through the middle. Now, we know Adam Ida travelled to Kazakhstan. He had a knee issue at the weekend. He was involved in training last night. Heavily involved. He wasn't in, it wasn't limited participation or anything like that. So Adam Ida is available. So this is one option that Brendan Rodgers could go for, with Adam Ida through the middle and Daisy Maida on the left, James Forrest on the right, and Benjamin Nigren in that midfield. The second option, Ryan, is a little bit different, with Benjamin Nigren perhaps moving onto the right flank. There's the potential for that, with maybe Daisy Maida or even Johnny Kenny through the middle, and then either Hyunjin Yang or Forrest on the left, and then if Nigren does go onto the right, you would bring Arne Engels into that midfield, maybe Paulo Bernardo. So that just shows to me like that kind of the four front positions, I think, are pretty changeable tonight, or could be pretty changeable, just depending on what Brendan Rodgers feels like is best for this game. But those were the two options I went with. There'll be varying opinions on what the manager might go with. What's your gut feeling on what he goes with tonight? Is it Maeda through the middle? Is that what you're feeling? Is it Johnny Kenny through the middle?
Out of those two options that you've just brought up, I would go with option two if it was me. And I'm not saying that I'm Brendan Rodgers or anything like that, but I just think that Daisy Maeda's fully fit. Yesterday, Brendan Rodgers was talking about the knee issue that Adam Ida's been having as of late, and I want players to be 100% fit. Now, I know that Adam Ida trained yesterday. There's pictures of him online training in Kazakhstan, which is great to see. I just think that Daisy Maeda should be trusted with the number 9 jersey tonight, to be honest. Whether that means Benjamin Nigren moves out of position or he goes back into the number 10 and somebody else comes into the midfield, I'm not so sure. But Celtic have options. I don't think they've got amazing options at this moment in time. You know, there'll be, hopefully by the end of the window, there'll be players that will just automatically go into set positions, such as Balikwisha, etc. Other players that will come into the team. But right now, out of those two teams that you've just brought up, I would go with option 2 rather than option 1.
Yeah, I think most people in the chat seem to be preferring option 2 here. I think they like the idea of Maida causing a bit of chaos through the middle. And I think Nygren showed on, at the weekend, again, just one game, but that he can perform in that kind of wider area and coming in centrally. And really, his influence was all over the park at various points. He wasn't just stuck out in that right wing. Brendan Rodgers noted after the Livingston game that in the first half, maybe Nygren was kind of affecting the balance of the team, just in the way that Celtic usually play. But as we know, I think in that second half, Celtic came onto the game. And again, people's opinion will vary on whether they want to see Arne Engels or Paulo Bernardo. I think Arne Engels just is a nudge ahead of Bernardo in Brendan Rodgers' mind at the moment, and that's why I've gone with that. I've actually quite liked Paulo Bernardo, but I think, if there is going to be a change in that kind of central midfield area, I would expect Arne Engels to be ahead of Bernardo.
Yeah, and I've got no issues with either of them playing, to be honest, and I think that Celtic can depend on the two of them to put in a good performance regardless, although Arne Engels' form has been a little bit up and down so far this season, which hasn't been helped with the fact that he's been in and out of the side. He's not really been starting many games at all, but we all know how good a player he can be, and you wouldn't be surprised if he turns up and makes an impact on the biggest stage so far for Celtic this season, which would be away in the Champions League. I think regardless of where Benjamin Nygren plays, I think the one thing that isn't up for debate is the fact that Benjamin Nygren will play tonight, and that's a testament to how well he's done coming into the team. I know he had a little bit of an off game in the first leg against Kairat, but at the weekend he supercharged Celtic into that 3-0 lead. He was all over that game in the second half, and we watched videos of Nygren before he came to Celtic, and I watched in particular the performance that he had against Fenerbahce for Nordjylland. He scored a hat-trick in that game against a really good opponent, and you would want him to do the same tonight. I'm not saying go and score a hat-trick, but make an impact against a good team. He's got that goal-scoring ability, and if he's put in front of goal, you would trust him at the moment, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely do. I've got no problems with Nygren at all. Brown Warrior asking why a 4-3-3, surely doing the same thing again, expecting different results is naive at this level. Tactically, Kairat nullified our setup at home. That's a question for Brendan Rodgers. I can't see him changing formation just based on recent history. Brown Warrior. Now he might, for this special one-off match, he might play two midfielders a little bit deeper. I think Brendan Rodgers is going to go with the kind of what he's gone with it at Celtic and trust that his players get the job done. I think in Brendan Rodgers' mind, he doesn't really see it as a tactical problem last week against Kairat, and he's talked up how he feels Celtic were better in the second half, etc. I think for Brendan Rodgers, it's all about the intent and the aggressiveness in the game from the start. So I guess we'll see. But I personally speaking, can't really see him changing the formation tonight, Ryan.
No, I think that would harm the team more than help them, to be honest with you, changing it for a big game against Kairat, completely changing the playbook essentially and trying a different formula away from home in Kazakhstan. I think it will stay as a 4-3-3. For me, last week, I think the main problem was the tempo or lack of positive tempo and the aggressiveness in the game. If Celtic can manage that positively, have that fine line between being, don't be too aggressive, but be front-footed in the game, and being quick in their passing and quick in their movement, then I think they should be okay on the night. I don't know about you, John, but I'm very much up for this game already. I realise how big a game it is for Celtic tonight, and I'm just hoping that the Celtic players are feeling the same, because they've got a real chance to bring back that good feeling. The good feeling was there at full time against Livingston, but very quickly there was a focus to this game in Kazakhstan, just ahead of the Rangers game at the weekend, and I know that's something that they're not focusing on until they come back, but it'd be a great way to start the week if they could get through in Kazakhstan tonight and really push ahead to that derby.
I mean, I'm up for it. I don't know if I'm particularly confident, to be honest with you, Ryan. I've got real problems with Celtic's wing play at the moment, and I think that's where the game fell down last week. Celtic were just getting into these wide areas and either doing nothing with it and being too loose in possession, or just entirely toothless and having to go back without really any purpose and recycle possession that way. It wasn't great. Any value in option 1 here with Adamida? It's getting slated in the chat. You're not fancying this. You're not fancying another half of Adamida. He was poor last week, wasn't he, against Kairat? And I think Brendan Rodgers playing him tonight, it would get criticism if he starts and doesn't do the business.
This is a game that if he was to start and put in another type of performance like he did last week, and he wasn't the only one to play poor last week, but unfortunately he was taken off at half time. That example was kind of made. I know there was injury issues as well there, but he was taken off at half time in a big game for Celtic in the Champions League qualifiers. If he was to put on a similar sort of performance, it starts to get really, really difficult for the likes of Ida to convince the Celtic fans otherwise, to the growing suspicions that people are having of the player, or that growing opinion that's formulating of the player. I want him to do well. I think we've spoke off air about Adam Ida maybe being a potentially better option off the bench. Well, let's see that happen tonight then. Dice Maida can be shifted out to the left in the second half, but play him through the middle and bring Adam Ida on if you're chasing a goal in the second half. If you could give him a position in which he could score a goal and be the hero on the night, I think it would do wonders for his confidence. It doesn't matter who scores tonight, I just hope that Celtic go through, but if Ida was to score, it would really change that perception, or go a long way into changing perceptions of the player, I think.
Yeah, and I think, we're flipping between option 1 and option 2 here. I think regardless of what the starting team is tonight, whether it's this option 1 or option 2,
I think it'll be a mixture between the two.
It could be a mixture between the two, but we're going to see a combination of all these players at some point throughout the 90 minutes. If Adam Ida doesn't start, I would expect him to come on as a substitute. If Yang doesn't start, I would expect him to come on as a substitute. Engels will appear at some point, whether he's starting or a substitute, etc., etc. So this is going to be a long 90 minutes. They're going to have to put a lot into it. And listen, let's not kid ourselves. It can go beyond 90 minutes too, and you need players for those scenarios, that scenario as well. This could be one that goes all the way, guys. Just with how tight it was last week. I don't want to give anyone the fear, but this could be a tight one that goes into the depths of tonight.
Look at the last tie that Kairat played. That went to a penalty shootout versus Slovan Bratislava, so they've got experience of playing that sort of scenario as well, so it's not completely off the table, but hopefully Celtic won't allow it to go to penalties. Hopefully they get it done in the 90 minutes, because I think that would be ideal for the preparations for games upcoming as well.
Gary Thompson saying, exactly, Ryan, when we upped the tempo at the start of the second half, they couldn't live with us and they got a real break of the ball off the post after it gets saved. That could have easily came out. If for a tap-in and the momentum would have built from there, chase them down all over the park, make their defenders face their own goal instead of facing the game the whole time, which they were fit and comfortable with. Listen, I think there's, I think they were just allowed to be set too quickly. They were organised and disciplined in what they were doing, but I think Celtic's, inability to shift the ball or into dangerous areas. There was no verticality at all in the passing, and when it was either over hit or under hit or sclaffed or all sorts of nonsense going on with that kind of those set-up balls that end up creating opportunities. Celtic need to get that right tonight. If they don't, Celtic will go out. That's just I'm convinced of that. So Celtic need to get their performance right tonight. None of this tentativeness, none of this. I thought Celtic looked a bit nervy at times in the first half last week. I don't know if it's just because it's the start of this it's the start of 4 halves, isn't it, across a 2-legged tie. And Brendan Rodgers saying sometimes that the first half of these 2-legged ties can be a bit low-key, but there's nothing low-key about tonight. Like, from the first whistle, this is massive.
Yeah, and to be honest, a lot of the players that were playing last week against Kairat, this is their first experience of playing in a qualifier for Celtic. So that is, Celtic haven't needed to negotiate qualifiers for a number of years now. I think that's 3 years since the Michelin game, 4 years actually since the Michelin game. So there's been quite a bit of turnaround in the squad since then. Yes, there's some players that have remained at the club like Callum McGregor, etc. But for the majority, they haven't played in those games and they haven't felt that pressure. Yes, they've played in the Champions League and yes, they've played in knockout ties, but there is that pressure to actually get to the Champions League, and I think that was felt by the players. For me, I think it's very simple. The midfield needs to stand up and be counted for tonight, because it wasn't last week. There wasn't a midfield on display, and unfortunately that evened the game out for Kairat, in my opinion. If Celtic can get their midfielders on the ball and start attacks, then I think they'll be absolutely fine on the night. But we're looking for Callum McGregor, looking for Benjamin Nigren, Arne Engels or Paulo Bernardo, whoever starts the game, Rio Hatate. You want them to stand up and be counted for tonight. If they can get their foot on the ball and make things happen in the middle of the park, then I think they'll be fine. But if they don't, then it's anyone's game, to be honest.
I'm sensing a confidence from you, Ryan, that I just don't have. I don't know if it's because I've been off for the last couple of days and not had my head.
It might be completely misplaced. I'm just up for the game and it's not based on anything, but it's just... I think it's maybe just a defiance of the fact that we have been pretty negative in recent weeks, and I'm just going to try something different and hope that it works out in Celtic's case. You know, I'm throwing everything and hoping that it sticks. But I just... If Celtic are up for this tonight, and we know that they're a better team than their opponents, I know that the games don't always go to that, but if Celtic can show their ability tonight in Kazakhstan, then I think they'll win the game and they'll go through. But it's up to them to show that professionalism against Kairat tonight.
It's a bit mixed in the live chat too. Charlie McGarvey saying nervous already. Liam Devine saying I'm confident. We have much better players also from Liam Devine. It's going to be one of those days, isn't it, where you're kind of, you look in an hour, I could be feeling confident, and then at 2 o'clock I'll be feeling nervous again. It's those kind of days. Yeah,
I've got to caveat everything. By the time 5:45 comes around, I will be nervous for the game, because this is the way I deal with these games. These games are big. These games are pressure filled, and there will be that nervousness because there's a lot on the line for Celtic. But right now, I'm just feeling optimistic. But I anticipate that optimism to go down as the hours pass.
Liam just also adding, this is the kind of situation I'd love to see the players in who can step up. I agree with that. I think, regardless of how tonight goes, I think you learn a lot about the players, and you learn a lot about where certain players are, where this team is as a unit, where Rodgers is, with this current group of players. There's so much riding on tonight. It's going to be, it's one of those moments in the season that is a turning point, positively and negatively, and the perception of this team, the perception of Rodgers, the perception of the players, the perception of the Celtic board, let's not forget, that is the big backdrop to all of this. Now, it doesn't particularly, everyone's putting that in the back of their head at the moment, especially with a couple of signings going on, but there is this kind of element, and for me, where the wide areas at Celtic aren't strong enough, and that is a real issue for me, just going into this game, just based on playing Slovan Bratislava last year, some of the other teams in the Champions League last year, and how important this forward line was. There's a lot of it's just so mixed, Ryan. I'm looking at the chat here. The reason why I'm laughing is just because I see one comment saying that this could be really nervous all night, and then I'm seeing another comment coming in saying it's going to be 3-0 Maeda McGregor and Johnny Kenny at the end. Any shout for Johnny Kenny through the middle tonight, Ryan? If it's not Adamida, is it Maeda for you? Any possibility? Now, just to make the point, Johnny Kenny is the only centre forward at Celtic this season to score a goal in terms of Shin Yamada, Adamida and Johnny Kenny. He's the only one. He got the goal at the weekend. Any chance he starts tonight, or is he going to be a substitute?
I think he will be a substitute, but there is a shout because of Celtic's wingers and their lack of strength on the wing as well, and in which you have to put Daizen Maeda out in the left in order to get some form of strength or some form of strength in the wide areas. But I think it's too big a tie for somebody like Johnny Kenny to be relied on at this moment in time. I think if he was to go in the team and then miss a couple of big chances, then it could I'm not going to say it could hamper his career or anything like that, but it could bring him back because he's in a pretty good place at the moment. He scored that goal against Livingston. It could provide a good option off the bench, but I think it's a massive tie for him. Give it to Daizen Maeda, player who's played in the Champions League and Conference League as well for Celtic, and he's done it in those competitions. So trust him with the number 9 jersey tonight.
Yeah, listen, guys, it goes without saying we're going to have full coverage of this over today. And listen, we've got training footage coming up from Almaty. Now, I know Celtic put up a couple of minutes of training footage last night, but we've got like a full 15 minutes. I think the media get access to like an open session for 15 minutes. So we've got the full 15 minutes footage of that. So it gives you a bit more context about what Celtic were working on last night. People like that. It's a wee bit interesting and something a wee bit different. So I'm going to be uploading that as soon as I come off the stream. And yeah, so you can have a look at that. And as I say, right across the website, we'll have coverage not just tonight, but over the next couple of days, guys. As I said, this is pivotal for Celtic season. And so if it goes positively, we've got the excitement of the Champions League draw on Thursday. If it goes negatively, then there's all sorts of ramifications. And like, listen, what went wrong? Where are Celtic going? What level are Celtic pitching themselves at? You know, it flips all on tonight. That's what the stakes are tonight. It's not just about money. It's about the ambition and prestige and direction of Celtic Football Club as a competitive footballing outfit. And I mean, that's a referendum tonight on that, Ryan.
Yeah, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. And we're speaking about it is 10:30 just now. That those decibels will just ramp up, especially online. You'll start to see it in people on social media as it gets closer and closer, and then it'll just be, regardless of how long the game is, it's going to be nervy unless Celtic can get the job done early tonight, which would be absolutely brilliant. But I'm anticipating, a nervy 90 minutes because it's Celtic in Europe. At the end of the day, nothing's changed. Celtic tend to do these things the hard way if they do it at all. So I'll take anyone at this moment in time. I'm not even going to make predictions, to be honest, at this moment, because I just want Celtic to go through. As long as Celtic go through into the Champions League, that is the main thing. It is the be all and end all at the moment.
It is hard to get a consensus on these things, but I'm seeing like growing consensus on the fact that a lot of supporters want to see Dyson Maeda through the middle tonight. Adam Carey saying with Dyson through the middle, Tierney will provide the wide support. Robert Gibson saying Maeda through the middle. Their captain is 37 years old. Turn the old guy around every opportunity we get. I think there was a wee moment of that last week where Martinovic just looked a bit flat-footed and got caught. And he eventually ended up getting booked. This was pretty early on in the game, I think. And I think Martinovic is there to be got at. I have to be honest with you. Like, I know when you're 37, I know it brings experience in his positioning and etc. and his organisation and his leadership, but surely there's something to get at there. The pace and the intent of Celtic having that forward line when they're all clicking, I think really has to get at them. Liam Devine, I've spoken about Liam, but he thinks it's going to be 3-1 Celtic tonight. Des Harkins saying 2-0 to the Celts. There's all a Wombat doing KT and Maeda tripping each other over on the left, and we've kind of talked about that in the past, and that might be another way of unlocking the best of Dyson Maeda and Kieran Tierney. If Kieran Tierney's just given license to attack that left hand side, Maeda's making those runs. I have got no problem with that, to be honest.
Their best passage of play between the two of them occurred when Maeda went into the middle. Now, he wasn't playing there, but he moved into the middle for that header. It was Kieran Tierney that put the header to Dyson Maeda against Falkirk, and it was a good finish by the striker, who was playing as a winger but moved into the centre. Maybe that could be the way forward for Celtic tonight. Get the most out of Kieran Tierney's attacking prowess and make the most of Dyson Maeda's pace and aggressiveness and anticipation and pressing ability too. So that could be the way forward for Celtic tonight. The more I think about it, the more I think that's a bit of a no-brainer, putting Tierney out at left back and Dyson Maeda through the middle. But it's completely up to Brendan Rodgers and who he sees as the best fit for tonight's game against Kairat.
At least we've solved that. I came into this morning's show and thinking, we're going to talk about everything here, but it really is what's in Brendan Rodgers' brain. But if the consensus of us and what seems to be the consensus of the live chat is that Dyson Maeda starts through the middle, then hopefully that's what we see. As we know, Brendan Rodgers might see something that we don't. And there's always a possibility. We are not football professionals, we have to say. Hazel Finn coming in with a 3-0 Celtic as well. Just to underline, guys, tonight the match is on Amazon Prime. So it's another footballing service you've got to shell out for and pay for if you pay for these things and you don't have a dodgy Fire Stick, as they call it. But it's just a heads up, it is on Amazon Prime tonight. So a lot of people have Amazon Prime anyway, but just to make you aware that that's where the game is tonight. It's not on Celtic TV. It's audio only on Celtic TV. It's not anywhere else in these parts other than on Amazon Prime. So just making people aware of that, Ryan. It'll be interesting to see a different style of coverage tonight from them.
I've got to say, all the coverage that I watched last season of Amazon Prime, I was thoroughly impressed with the way that they do things. They've always got a star-studded panel. I'm sure there'll be some familiar faces as well to Celtic in that panel. I don't know for sure who the lineup will be, but I'm sure there'll be some Celtic A-listers covering the game tonight. It was good coverage last week for Rangers' game against Bruges, and I would expect the same I believe they've got the coverage for their pick of a Tuesday night game. So the fact that Celtic are the British team playing in the Champions League means that they've taken that. So it should be good coverage from Amazon tonight, because I've not seen anything different from them over the past year or so.
Someone asking if it's on RT in Ireland. I don't have the Irish broadcasting details, Des, unfortunately. Maybe someone in the live chat can inform me. I potentially should have looked that up before I came on the stream. I like to have all the information for everyone, but I'm not sure what's happening in Ireland tonight, so you'll just need to check your local listings, as they say, Ryan. Any final thoughts before we go? I know we're on later, we're on live for the team news and etc. So we've got lots more chat and direct reaction to the team that Brendan Rodgers goes with. Anything else you want to say about the potential team tonight? Someone's saying the option 1 I put together isn't an option at all for them. So this isn't what we want. This is what we want, Ryan. Just final thoughts.
Yeah, as much as option 1 I think is a strong team, and I would expect it to do the business on the night, I think option 2 is the one that we need to go for. I know we're not really talking about anything else at the moment, but it is, and I know we'll speak about this hopefully in the coming days as well, but it is good that we're finally seeing a resolution to the ongoing saga of Michel-Ange Balikwisha. It looks as if that's finally going to get sorted over the coming days. He's a player that I've been writing about for a good year now, since he's been linked with Celtic originally, so it looks as if he will finally become a Celtic player. I know all focus is on tonight, but it is good that is getting done in the background as well, and looking forward to seeing him in the hoops if and when he signs.
Our live chat has delivered, Ryan. It's on Premier Sports 1 in Ireland. So if you fancy watching Celtic in Ireland tonight, it's Premier Sports 1. A couple of people confirming that. So I'm glad we could provide that information in the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, listen, join us tonight. We'll be live straight after the team announcement with the reaction to that. We'll be live after the full-time whistle as well. We've got lots of stuff coming. We've got, we'll have all the news from Almaty, all what Brendan Rodgers has said in his post-match press conference, everything. We've got full coverage today, tomorrow and beyond of what is a huge week. You know, we've not even mentioned it, Ryan, but we've got tonight. There's European draws later in the week. The transfer window's ongoing, as you know, and Celtic are off to Ibrox at the weekend. It's exciting time. I love this time of year. I know people talking about, it's so crazy, that it's so tense, everything's happening all at once. This is what you live for as a football supporter, these big moments that are defining for your club. This is what it's all about, everyone. So while I might have been a bit nervous earlier regarding the result, today's what it's all about, Ryan. This is why we support Celtic.
This is why we support Celtic, and this is why we cover Celtic as well for exciting weeks like these. You know, you think about all that time during the summer when nothing's happening regarding the club. You're looking for a single story to write about. Now there's storylines everywhere. Are Celtic going to get through to the Champions League? Are Celtic going to win the Glasgow Derby? Who are they going to sign? This is a really exciting time, and you're just hoping that excitement is matched by the players on the pitch this evening.
Well, listen, thanks everyone for joining us for some of our early coverage of this. If you join us live or if you join us below the line, let us know what you think of tonight's game. Let us know in the comments below. If you have some written out comments, some observations to make regarding tonight, then we will read them out on the pre-match show as well. So if you want to leave them below the line, a lengthier comment that we can get our teeth into for the pre-match show, then feel free to do that. We really appreciate you all. We'll be back later on, and we'll see you again next time